And we're rolling on 3.
Hi, I'm Mike Solosi. I'm health promoter at Norwest Co-op Community Health Center, and this is the Hans Kai Back Mobility Pain Management session. So usually this session is kind of the one that we're doing here is going to be a culmination of a back pain clinic that I usually offer and a mobility and flexibility kind of class. So this one's going to be really focusing on back pain, specifically lower back pain. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can kind of think about back pain. There's different ways of assessing it, treating it. There's all kinds of different clinical trials and stuff that people would have to do to really get a true snapshot of what's happening in their back. Typically, a really good one should take about 6 hours. So usually you don't kind of get that sort of thing. But with my background, I'm mostly concerned about movement. So everything that I do is basically, if you can move properly, your body's at least going to be able to function a little bit better. So the major thing that we're going to be looking at today is called puntum fixum. So basically the idea comes from when you have a fixed point, there's another point that has to move around, right? So as we do office work in that, and we hunch over for a long time, kind of the spots that are supposed to be movable start to seize up. So then things that aren't supposed to move end up starting to move, which usually kind of focuses down into the lower back. And usually if you get kind of like a belt of pain, it's usually because of a puntum fixum type problem. So we're going to be using the foam roller, a couple mobility drills, and stretches. Basically, you never want to do just one thing. Like, you shouldn't be just using a foam roller or something to help address any sort of pain. There's all sorts of different stages. And usually it's a foam roller, a good stretch, and then some sort of mobility drill, and then afterwards exercises to try to help somebody kind of get back to moving properly. So basically, if you were to take an x-ray of me, you would see in my spine, basically I have big huge bones here in the very base of my spine here. That's your lumbar. Okay, going up higher is your thoracic region. So that's the part that's very, very bendy. And then up towards my neck, even more bendier. So what we kind of look at the spine as being like is kind of like a fishing pole. So the bottom of your fishing pole, when you're fishing, it never really bends, right? That's why I usually tell people not to stretch their lower back. That goes against a lot of stuff that you hear about in yoga and Pilates and that, but really the lower back isn't meant to be stretching. There's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 degrees range of motion in each of those big bones there. It's supposed to be kind of like the foundation of your house. Getting up higher, you start to get more and more range of motion. So it's basically like a fishing pole. If you were to bend it kind of like this, the base stays stable and the whole top moves around. This is kind of where puntum fixum is going to really play a role, and understanding kind of what the muscles do. So if you take a fishing pole, obviously you could bend it very, very easily. Your spine is just bones basically with a rope kind of tied right through the middle of it. And what really protects it are basically all the little guy wires, if you will, that kind of keep it stable. So when you pull one way, certain guy wires kind of pull the other way to make sure that you're not bending the wrong way or bending ways that you're not supposed to be. Those basically are all kind of determined how they're going to fire basically by your brain. So what we often find with desk workers and that is if you sit for over 20 minutes, ligamental creep basically sets in. And basically what that means is if you get up to answer the phone or do something quickly, stand up too fast and try to move, that's often when people hurt themselves. It's usually never, you hardly ever hear anybody hurting themselves, lifting a TV or doing anything else like that. It's usually, picking something up off the ground with bad posture, and then they get that zing that shoots up their back, almost like an electrical current that just like fries right through you. It's in those times there when your body doesn't actually create the stiffness that it needs to with those guy wires. So your body is lax, and basically the only thing supporting your spine is just bones, which really doesn't do a whole heck of a lot, and that's kind of when damage happens. So getting back to puntum fixum, here is my fixed point, and here is my movable point in my elbow, right? So put that kind of theory into your spine. So your lower back isn't supposed to move, right? So your upper back is the top of the fishing pole. It's supposed to waver back and forth. So again, hunching over for a long time, really getting into, I call it the geek posture, on your phone or writing or doing something like that, when you're hunched over for a long time, those muscles up top start to seize, right? So basically what happens is now the puntum kind of slides up and then it kind of inverts itself. So all of a sudden now your lower back starts to turn and twist at times when it's not supposed to, when really the twisting is supposed to come from here. So if you ever watch amateur golfers playing with professional golfers, you'll often see in their warm-up, the professionals will take a golf club and they'll twist side to side like this, whereas the amateurs will twist like this. The difference is right now I'm twisting my lower back, right? And the professionals keep their lower back engaged, like the stiffness in their bracing, in their abdominals, and they start twisting side to side from there. And basically it's just training that thoracic part of your body there to start moving and start to be flexible. The other piece comes from the other factor of sitting for a long time is everything in your hip region starting to seize up. So if you drive truck for a long time and you're constantly extended out with your leg or something, or you're at your desk for even 3 hours at a time without moving around, usually these guys start to seize up. And you'll see it, it's usually kind of, I call it like a Donald Duck butt. So it's almost like their butt kind of sticks out and they got a huge lumbar lordosis here. So it's just a slight lean forward versus being like this. It's enough to put enough pressure onto the lower back to kind of signal and kind of switch that puntum fixum around. So as soon as your hips get tight or you're noticing that you don't really have that flexibility like you used to, again, it's coming up basically right into that lower back. What kind of happens is your butt basically stops working, and then the lower back there, those muscles start to shift up and down a lot, and they're not designed to do that kind of work. The back is totally different than almost any other muscles, the way that your brain kind of functions it. Usually you'll never hear, unless it's a very, very bad kind of diagnosis, but usually it's not just one muscle in your back that ever goes out. It's usually, the brain uses the back like a bunch of sheets. So when it's doing something, it fires, your latissimus dorsi, and it fires a bunch of rhomboids, and it fires all these different things. It fires different parts of your obliques and that to sit there and brace around your stomach. Breathing is a huge, huge part in what happens with your lower back pain. I think we've probably talked about this before, but if you want to, even right now, you can take your fingers, if you're sitting up and you're in good posture, if you take your fingers and press into your lower abdomen there, if somebody tells you to draw your belly button in, it's a poor way of doing what we're going to be doing. What's better is to basically pretend you're holding in a laugh, pretend you're holding in a fart, is basically what I want you to kind of do. So press your fingers in and then kind of push your stomach out so that you create pressure in here. So you're not doing like a six-pack flex or anything like that, but you're just creating pressure, okay? The next piece comes from breathing through your ribs. So improper breathing, usually you'll see people's, their chests kind of heave up and down. What really should be happening is it should be kind of like in Looney Tunes, when they swallow the dynamite, out to the sides. That's how your ribs are supposed to flare. Kind of almost like fish gills, right? So if you can create pressure in your stomach and then push in your lower ribs and breathe that way without doing that sort of thing, it takes a lot of practice. But basically that's the proper way to actually be able to contract your stomach and breathe through almost any sort of exercise. As you get better at it, you can create pressure here and then under the lower ribs on both sides. And then lastly, the last step is right in the lower back. So basically you create almost like a whole belt right around your stomach and that. Your stomach is the major player really in protecting your spine and what happens to it. Next to that, I would say, is probably this big hunk of meat here that kind of connects all the way from your arms and it goes all the way down your back, basically. That's your latissimus dorsi. So if you can't do pull-ups or something, learn. I think we've done latissimus dorsi exercises with the resistance band. So basically taking a band, putting it over top of a door frame, and then just pulling straight down and pulling your shoulders down towards the ground with your elbows as well. You'll start to kind of work those muscles there. Okay, so your foam roller. Basically what we're going to be doing is massaging, for lack of a better word, certain points in your back. And then we're going to switch over and go just straight into your hips. So a lot of people, you'll see, they roll back and forth for days on end. It's not the true function of what the foam roller is actually supposed to be about. It's really not so much a pre-workout kind of thing as it is better for working towards mobility drills. Mobility drills are kind of where it's at when it comes to really managing back pain and that. There's certain things that everybody should be able to do. I'll get more into it later, but basically everyone should be able to do a few key exercises regardless of age and regardless of knee health or anything like that. As time goes on, you should be able to do it every single day. And the major one is to be able to do a full squat for 30 seconds and be able to hold that every single day, regardless of age. Basically that is the one piece of information that, as long as you can kind of continue that on, you should be able to keep a reasonable amount of hip mobility. You'll see if a lot of people that have never done any sort of exercise or that this is very, very difficult. You can almost guarantee that they're going to be having some sort of back issues, and virtually I think it's 9 out of 10 people they say have back issues. And I would say that 1 out of 10 person is lying. Everybody has some sort of back issues at least one point in their life. Okay, foam roller. So there's all kinds of different ones. I'm evil, I think. So you can see on this foam roller, there's all kinds of teeth on it, and it's a very, very dense foam, where there's other ones that you can kind of squeeze and it's almost like a gel. I prefer going hard, basically. Laying on this, you'll notice right away the points in your back and that are stiff. It's not uncommon to feel pops in your back as if you're going to like a chiropractor. It's just basically, there's nothing major that's going to be happening to you. It's basically just kind of air releases in between different discs and that kind of thing. So getting back to some of the, before we get into all the foam rolling, so getting back to some of the stuff that you should never do, especially if you do have any sort of back pain, like a herniated disc or that, is we already discussed stretching. So stretching the lower back, it's a nay-nay. I'll show you something much better. It's called the cat-cow. It's a yoga pose basically, and it's better. Your body is actually, your weight is dispersed versus you stretching over to try to touch your toes, or that sit and reach that we used to do when we were kids. Basically, nothing is engaged right now. My guy wires in my spine aren't working, okay? So all of my weight in my head, chest, arms, stomach, everything is basically getting all pinched onto those poor little discs in my lower back. So there's no difference if you're in a yoga class or doing that at home. You're still trying to reach for your toes with your weight the wrong way. Other things, there is getting up off the floor, and that is a major trick for a lot of people. It takes a lot of practice, so kind of coming from a recovery position. But tying people's shoes is very, very difficult. If they don't have the ability to actually squat down or to drop to one knee to tie something, usually what you see people do is they'll stoop over to try to tie their shoe. So some of the best things you can do is basically, if you have a chair, sit down into the chair and have a box where you can put your shoe up and then just lean forward. So again, I'm keeping my back straight and then tying my shoe, or like I just showed you, basically drop down to 1 foot and keep it. So again, my back is nice and straight. I'm not tying it like this. This is just taking money out of the bank, okay? So that's that. Let's get into some of the foam rolling stuff. So you got your foam roller. The first little bit is kind of the foundation movement. So what I want you to do is basically keep a good 45-degree angle on your back. You're not keeping it right in the lower back, so it's not in that swoop above your hips. It's higher up from that, so right where the curve starts to change. That's kind of where we're going to start. So keep your feet, keep them planted on the ground. If you want to, just for the foundation piece, keep your hands behind your head. I don't want to see you doing a crunch or anything like that. You shouldn't be wrenching on your neck to pull yourself up. But just feel the motion of just sliding back and forth. So you can keep your bum on the ground, okay? And just slide back and forth, maybe 2-3 inches in one spot. Generally, this piece here as a foundation, a really good warm-up should take about up to a minute. Okay, so do maybe 10-15 passes in that one spot, and then just kind of move up a little bit higher up onto your back. So you should be able to feel some of the muscles there in your back. Some of you might even be popping right now. But it's really just bringing a lot of the blood flow to that area. So the foam roller kind of stimulates your autonomous nervous system. So that's like your breathing, blood flow and that. So if you start to notice that your cheeks are getting flush, it's common. Okay? And then come really close up right by your neck. So you're getting that last little piece. So usually when I do it, it's in about 3 different kind of sections. All right. So just slow motions back and forth. We're just kind of like mashing up the muscle there. Good. Return back. Put your hands down onto the ground so that you're not doing a sit-up crunch. Which again, I didn't actually bring it up. Sit-ups, crunches, that stuff. Again, we talked about this in the Handsky, the exercise session, but it's bad for your back, right? Constant forward flexion and that. Even if you're doing it in an exercise class or something like that, it's your choice if you really want to do it. Basically, everybody has so many crunches and sit-ups that they have in the bank, okay, that they can get away with. Eventually, you're going to cause a disc herniation. And 2/3 of people don't actually even feel a disc herniation, right? It's only the 1/3 that's unlucky enough to actually get that extreme pain that runs through them, and the other 2/3, they feel nothing, even though there is a compromised disc in their spine. So the forward flexion can create that. Basically, for argument's sake, there's like a marble on the inside of your disc. So every time that you squeeze forward, it's like pinching a balloon. So that balloon bulges in the back, right? So that marble pops out and slams into the back every time that you do that forward crunch. Enough times it basically breaks its way through and then starts to stick out, right? That's kind of what your layman's sense of slip disc is basically. So doing stuff like planks, some Pallof press kind of exercises and that stuff where your spine is neutral is much, much safer and functionally better than doing like sit-ups and crunches. There's better options than just doing that kind of stuff. Okay, let's get into the 3 kind of stages of the thoracic spine stuff. So get back into your start position. What you're going to do this time is, some people have a little bit of difficulty with maintaining their head posture on this piece of the exercise. So if you're really having a tough time, try to push your tongue to the roof of your mouth. But basically what we're going to be doing is hands basically just overhead, and we're going to copy kind of the same motion. So your butt can kind of leave the ground a little bit. Just let your hands basically droop behind you. Okay, I'll move a little further. So we're kind of just mashing, again, a lot of those muscles all in that kind of same area. You'll notice by putting your hands up behind you, putting your hands up overhead, you'll feel a few different muscles that might be a little bit sore or a bit tender. And that's just normal. Again, it's a very, very good recovery tool, the foam roller, because again, you're bringing more and more blood flow to that area. So then when you do stretches, you're going to be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more pliable, and that, okay, and roll right back to just close to your neck piece. So again, we're building the foundation now to be able to do the mobility drills and have more mobility. Okay, return back, take a little rest, give your neck a rest. So this time what you're going to do is you're going to give yourself a big hug, okay? So I want your elbows out in front of you as best you can, and I want you to go into that bad posture now. So I want you to round your upper back. So same deal, you can get up off of your bum, okay? Same deal, and roll. You'll notice when we get right into the spot that's almost between your shoulder blades, that's kind of where a lot of people you might want to yelp. If you have some tightness there, if you have a shoulder impingement, a lot of times you'll notice that those are the muscles right where the shoulder blades kind of usually house themselves. Those muscles there start to get inflamed, and those are often the things that kind of impede kind of how far your shoulder can kind of raise up in that. So we're also kind of doing some extra duty. So it's just more mobility stuff that you can kind of work around with. So keep raising up until you get close to the neck piece. return back. Bum down on the mat. So this time what I want you to do is I want you to clap your hands out in front of you. You're going to roll your shoulders. So what we're going to do is you're going to keep your bum on the mat, and I just want you to fall back, maybe about a few inches. And you're going to scoot up, maybe just a tiny little bit, and keep on going. If you're doing this right, you're probably going to feel some clicks in your spine. We're just arching back a tiny bit. Further up you go. We're kind of going one vertebrae at a time. And then just kind of return back to normal. Okay, so that was your thoracic piece. Okay, so we're going to quickly hop over into some of the hip stuff. So when we do the hip stuff, I'm not going to roll around so much to try to mash up all the muscles. I'm going to be doing kind of like a mobility trick. So I really want to focus on different parts of where all your joints kind of intersect, so especially in your hip and that. If you've had a hip replacement, just be very, very careful of that. Or if you're osteoporotic, just be careful because there is a lot of pressure that can be put down onto that kind of region right there. So what we're really targeting is the tendons in that. So if you do have osteoporosis or that, you can basically kind of just disperse your weight a little bit differently and just kind of glide over softly, or just go with a softer foam roller. Okay. So what we're going to do first is I want you to get that foam roller right in that crease of your hip. So we're going to go right from the side. Okay. So if you roll kind of back and forth, usually I use this as my motor kind of thing. And this is my guide kind of thing. So this kind of keeps me in a balance. And don't feel bad if you don't get your balance right away. It's an awkward thing. Try not to accordion. Basically what that means is as soon as a lot of people feel pain, like I'm looking at your leg right there, people start to do this, right? So we have to get out of the habit of clenching up like that. If you stay clenched, you're not going to get any kind of benefit out of foam rolling or mobility on that. Because we're retraining how the body is basically handling tight muscles, right? So what I want you to do is stay in that spot, roll over onto your stomach, basically back and forth. Right in that joint. Yeah, everybody, yeah. Yeah. So if you've been sitting at your desk for a little bit too long, you're going to notice that right away. Yeah. So if we really, really want to be mean, we can stay in that front piece. Okay, right? Yeah. right where your hip is, and just grind back and forth. Yeah. It kind of hurts, but it kind of feels good. I know it sounds sadistic, but hey, that's my background. So. It's a good pain, that's right.
It's a good pain.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so while we're still on that leg, what I want you to do now, okay, if you didn't actually notice just how I got up, so I was on my stomach onto kind of like a plank position and then walk back. So again, I don't want to see this, right? A rounded back. You should be onto all fours and pushing yourself back. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to just face this way here. This one's a little bit different. So I want you to get into almost like a plank position, okay? I say this is kind of like a beached pose. So get your leg up almost as high as you can. Some of you are really gonna notice this one, okay? So if it hurts, try to stick with it. And I want you to basically just grind back and forth, all the way right up into your groin. Yeah. So those are your adductors, your hip adductors. So they bring your leg in. Okay, so when they get tight, they play a huge role like on your knees and that. But yeah, yeah. So just small motions. If you find a spot that hurts, hang out there for a bit. But the good trick is to try to keep your leg almost like dead weight onto that foam roller. I mean, if I was to push up with all the other muscles and just keep my leg here, it's not going to do anything. The trick is pressure down onto the roller itself. Okay. So roll back and forth. Basically, that muscle there connects right into your pubis bone. So when it gets very, very tight, it flares your hips out funny. And I actually suffered a back issue because those muscles were too tight. And all I was doing is kind of like a push-up bench press sort of thing at the gym, and I felt a pop in my lower back. And it was because these muscles here were too tight and they were flaring my hips out, so that the guy wires in my spine weren't able to actually contract properly. So it created a huge amount of pressure, and then I was laid up for a little bit. Okay, so you can switch over to the other leg. It's the same deal. And you'll notice probably one side is going to be worse than the other.
Yeah.
Try to keep your hips as square as you possibly can. Okay, so you shouldn't be putting like all your weight sideways and just kind of doing the leg thing like this. You should be basically in a square start kind of position, and just let that weight droop over.
Is this good for exercise too, Mike? Because it's stretching my arms.
Yeah, because you're in a. I want to do exercise, but yeah, it's a starter. It can go both ways basically. You can use it at the end of a workout, which is when it's best. You can use it for the beginning piece, just because that muscle there is often really, really tight. So crawl back up, and we'll do that other side of the hip there that we didn't get to yet. So again, bottom leg straight, other leg on top. Get right onto that meat there, right in the joint. Just grind back and forth. If you're noticing that hip flexor is tight, just hang out there. Okay, we got that. Now what I want you to do is basically just let's sit up onto the roller. Okay, so usually you're going to have to get off of the tailbone. So we can get the big chunk of meat, and then we're going to target a specific muscle. So let's do our right side first. So just kind of get off the tailbone and just glide back and forth. So I'm using both legs just to try to keep my balance. And I got my other arm out basically just to kind of make sure I don't go tumbling nowhere. Somebody sore? Yeah? So we're just mashing up that muscle. You can go right up to the hip, like the very top of your hip, and all the way right to that line in your bum. And again, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see a rounded back. I want you in a straight back the whole time. Okay, and then just kind of switch over to the other side. Grinding back and forth. Perfect. Now, we're going to go back to the right side, but this time what I want you to do, if you can, try to bring up that right foot, put it on your left knee. Okay? Now, off of that tailbone, and you're going to kind of move almost like a C shape, and I want you to slide down. There's a good chance you'll notice exactly where that muscle is as soon as you hit it, because I could see the people's faces wincing. Yeah, there it is, yeah. So that guy there is your piriformis. If you know anybody...
I sure know it.
Yeah, right, yeah. The research on it is kind of back and forth, but it plays a role in a lot of sciatic pain. So everybody's kind of genetically different, just like our shoulders are all genetically different. But the sciatic nerve comes right from your spinal cord there, and it basically shoots either in front of the piriformis, behind the piriformis, sometimes directly right through it. Okay, so if you're somebody that often tends to stand and you shoot your hips over to one side, there's a good chance that you're going to swell that muscle up. So when that muscle swells, it can pinch on the sciatic nerve, and you'll get basically referred pain, just like it. Okay, so switch to the other side. Same deal. Make sure you're doing kind of like a little C shape. Keep your spine nice and aligned. Beautiful. Hey. You know, relaxing now. Yeah. So the cat-cow. So the first one to really master out of our group of exercises here for our back is basically in this. So I want you to really be conscious of kind of what your posture is. Right now my knees are too far forward, and that your weight should be really dispersed over top of your wrists. Okay? And I shouldn't be crushing with my chest muscles. Okay, so I shouldn't see my upper back rounded too high, it shouldn't be too low. Okay, it should be in just a proper kind of position here. So spin around. So again, I don't want to see a rounded lower back or anything. I want you on a good posture, because we're going to do a couple of movements from this base, all right? So the cat-cow is basically just to arch your upper back as high as you can and drop your head. You'll hold that for a few seconds. And you're going to do the complete opposite. So you're going to rotate your hips, and you're going to pull your head back. So that's the cow piece. Okay? So again, instead of stretching your lower back, do this instead. So if you're noticing that it's very, very tight, or very, very sore, this is kind of the route to go. And really, you can tie this in with that 30 seconds every day of doing a squat. Okay, so from there, I want to get you into one of the actual exercises. So again, this one should be daily or at least every second day. This is called the bird dog. So again, I want you nice and square, proper posture, proper alignment. And what you're going to be doing is starting off by just raising one arm up. And what shouldn't happen is you shouldn't be shifting around anywhere. You should be able to do that bracing exercise that we did with our stomach, right? Where you're kind of holding in that laugh. So you're keeping the pressure there, and then just raising one arm up. Okay? You hold that there. You're challenging some neuromuscular components there in your spine. Return your arm back down. And now we're going to go even trickier. So we're going to do opposite arm, opposite leg. Okay? And sweep the ground. So you shouldn't be rotating your hips or anything. You should be nice and square. I wish I could have a mirror right now to see how I am right now. But it takes a lot of coaching, okay, to be able to master the proper postures in that. So that there's the bird dog, okay? So we're still in this posture. If you need to rest your wrists for a second, just kind of massage them out a little bit. We're going to do some T-spine twists. So you can do these in a chair if you're in an actual office or something and you're noticing that your back is starting to stiffen up. Again, bracing the tummy, hands up high, and you just twist and rotate. The one we're going to do is going to be on all fours, though. It's a little bit, you'll get more bang for your buck. And there's a couple progressions that you can kind of use from this as well. So I'm going to do my right side here. So hand behind your head, you're in proper posture here. What I want you to do is, again, brace your lower back. I want you to twist the upper back so that you bring elbow to elbow, and then rotate back. Okay, so you're twisting and you're regaining that motion that we're losing in our T-spine. Okay, let me switch over to the other side. Once you get really good at that, if you're noticing that you're getting a lot of flexibility, some people like to do this, so you can twist in and rotate back. It'll give you a little bit more range. If you're noticing that you're very, very limited, you can actually arch back and just have your back, your hand on your lower back, just rotate forward and rotate back. Okay, so this helps keep, if you're having a problem with keeping your neutral spine, okay, that will help you out tremendously. Okay, then you can also get into even more fun exercises from it too. You can stick one leg out, pull back, and you're getting a stretch in here and that. But for another one that we'll do for now the inner thighs, looks very much like a hockey pose. So you're from all fours, but I want you to go very, very wide. Okay, and what I want you to do is just bring your bum towards your heels. So just basically bounce and rock back. Okay, keeping your spine neutral the entire time.
I'm wearing the right pants.
Yeah. Mhm. So basically just a bounce back and forth. You can go wider, you can go thinner. It doesn't really matter too much for us right now. But just do that, stay at the very end of it, and just slight bounces back and forth. So really we're trying to get your brain to really work between, it's your lumbo-pelvic hip complex. So we want your legs to work independent of your hips, and your hips to work independent of your back. We don't want your hips and your back working at the same time, right? They should all be kind of different. So we're going to do that with these bands here that we got. So grab your band. And if you don't have one, in Hands Kai we got those tubes. Same deal. You can basically take that, you can make a loop around it. These just have just a little bit different functions than other things, eh? So what we're going to do is put that around one foot. And I want you to roll back. Okay, so I want your tailbone off of the mat, and I want your lower back as flat down onto the ground as you can. Okay, and just hang on to your feet in this pose. So you're going to be contracting your abs this entire time, right? Okay, so just kind of get your balance, get your bearings. And what I want you to do now is the leg that doesn't have the band on it, I want you to slowly lower that, keeping the abs braced the entire time. Lower that down to the ground. Don't let your lower back round, okay? If you're noticing that all of a sudden the lower back rounds, you don't have the hip mobility to go down that low, right? So as time goes on, you'll be able to reach that, but that's kind of like a goal for yourself. So just drop that leg down, exhale everything out, and pull it back up. You'll probably notice it's an incredibly good ab workout. Drop it down, pull her back up. Drop it down.
So you really want like no space between your lower back and the floor.
Right, nothing. Yeah. So if you're noticing that you're rolling forward, just readjust yourself, just kick your legs up high again, and just kind of stay kind of in this posture. So you're getting your tailbone off the mat. The further that you kind of start to lean forward, yeah, it's harder to kind of keep that lower back down flat. Okay, and just switch over to the other leg. Okay, and then the same deal. So you can reset yourself and then just do your exercises. Remember to exhale on the bottom, bring it back up. Try to keep that pressure in your tummy the whole time, right? We're trying to lock the back and the hips so that just that joint, just that hip joint, can sit there and move around freely. And that's what's going to give us our mobility. Beautiful. 2 more and I'll set you free. Okay. So a lot of you office workers felt those tight muscles up here. Okay, so I want you on, we're going to do kind of a 90-90. Don't do the old hip flexor stretch like this. Okay, that's an end range motion, and I don't like people doing those. Okay, what should be happening is you should be straight up and down, you know, almost 90 degrees here, straight down line here, and a 90 degrees here. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is you should already probably feel some of the stretch in that front thigh. Okay, I want you to squeeze your butt and pull your shoulders back. And if you have to, it's a slight drift forward. Okay. Everybody can kind of feel where that stretch is. So that's getting one piece of it. Now what I want you to do is take whatever shoulder is opposite of that knee that's up. I want you to turn 15 degrees over to that side to face it. And I want you to lean back a little bit. Now you should have changed, you should feel the angle changes a little bit in that front thigh. So that's another part of your hip flexor kind of complex right there. So some people you'll see, they'll throw their arm up in that. If you have tight muscles up here or something, that'll throw you off. So I just say just to lean back, it's easier. The other kind of cue that you can do is actually yell right down in there, because basically it just kind of changes the how your body fires that muscle there. So letting go of like a loud oomph, like from karate, like a like that actually tightens up those muscles for you to be able to target that stretch better. Okay, so we'll switch over to the other side again. So again, good posture, squeeze your butt, pull your shoulders back, glide forward a tiny bit. And usually everybody's got, again, one leg is usually tighter than the other. So you'll probably feel it right away. So hold that for a bit. And turn and face it, and lean back. So again, you get a good pull. That muscle there connects right from your hips and attaches right into the base of your spine. So if that guy gets tight, it's very, very hard to target. But this is kind of the way to at least get the mobility from it. So again, you shouldn't be like this. You're just not engaged enough. Okay? You should be able to get all the stretches just by pushing your hips, basically that little bit forward. Okay, last but not least, we'll do the old pigeon pose. So try to keep your hips as square as you can. Okay, you're going to bend that front leg out in front of you. And I'll give you a different option too if you can't achieve this pose. But I don't even know how to instruct this one, but you guys are doing it properly. So just if you're just watching this on video, just try to mimic exactly what I'm doing here. So it's an elongated posture, okay? And basically I'm feeling the stretch mostly in my butt area and a lot in my front hip, okay? So this really breaks up a lot of the tension in that, kind of gets the mobility going. So if you guys want to, you can do the other leg, and I'll demonstrate the other way of kind of achieving something similar to it. So from your back, what you'll do is have one knee bent, you'll hold the knee up at your chest, squeeze your butt, and keep pulling forward, okay? So as high up as you can. Basically, we're teaching the brain how to engage the butt and to lengthen that hip flexor. Okay. So that is the back pain mobility clinic and that. So a lot of those exercises you should be able to do every single day. If you are suffering from back pain, it takes a long time to recovery and it takes a lot of work. A lot of people will assume, that you can just go see a chiropractor, see acupuncture, and you'll be back to normal. It ain't gonna happen. If your movement is off, if every time that you step, that your lower back starts shifting in that, you'll never recover properly, right? So movement is key when it comes to actually recovering from any sort of injury, even preventing injuries. So movement is awesome. You guys did great. Thank you so much. Well done.